Welcome back to WRPL, it's the podcast where we talk about all the things we're watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
What's up, Steve?
Not much, Ben. How you doing?
Banger week. Lots of stuff to talk about, and not a lot of time to do it. I had to do a double feature today because I had a
I know you
office
hate
party
those.
thing. I mean, I had no problem. It's just in the winter months, you get up and you see one, you have something to eat, you see another one, and by the time you're out of that second one, it's so dark and it feels like it's 9 o'clock at night. Um, but yeah, I gotta do what I gotta do. Gotta get my movies in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, today's topic is The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. Not Kraven 2, since Steve is too much of a weenie to pull the trigger on watching bad movies.
I watched Morbius for you. I watched Madam Web for you.
And you needed to continue with
No,
that.
I'm
It's
over it.
for the podcast. Well, it's over anyways because it's the last one. It's gonna tank, and I mean, what else are they gonna do with the series? Nothing. They're gonna bend the knee to Disney and go, fine, you can do them because since you know how to. They could have. If they
We'll
just would have
see.
stopped and thought, they would have. Anywho,
We'll
let's
see.
let's start with a roll.
I got an 8.
And I got a
19.
19. All right. Everything's coming up, Millhouse. All right. News first. I actually have little bits of news, but since we have a lot, let's try to talk quick. Talk quack.
Jesus Christ.
Try to talk quick. So Chris Evans is going to be back in an Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday. How you feeling?
I just want good things for our guy.
I
and
know.
He,
But it's like one of his best things, you know?
No, 100% agree. I just don't care.
Yeah. And with like Iron Man or Robert Downey Jr. coming back as well, it just doesn't feel special.
Yeah, I mean, I know those are like the two top guys who butted heads, Civil War, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just seems, it's very comic booky, so I get it.
Yeah.
Like they always come back, or they're dead, and they come back,
Yep.
or multiverse or whatever. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like this is some sort of ridiculous concept to bring him in. That being said, I wish we would get past the point of just going, remember that?
Yeah. And with this being the end of the multiverse saga, I think we'll get less of that. Who knows what sort of Marvel Universe exists after that, but I think if they're doing, since it's not going to be Tony Stark Iron Man, which he may show up as well, it's a big, huge multiverse thing. There's a chance that the old Fantastic Fours show up and old X-Men and all that. Hugh Jackman's probably in it. That this doesn't have to be Captain America. This could be Captain Hydra, and they bring over a bad one, and they're like, "Oh, I can't beat up Steve. He's one of our teammates, and he's all hail Hydra." They have a chance to do really fun things.
Sure.
And not just, look at it. So yeah, next, Malcolm in the Middle's coming back. That's cool.
Sure.
Not a big fan of Malcolm in the Middle?
No, I wasn't like I was kind of at that period where I was aware of it when it was on, but I think I was still kind of like too young to care about it. But every episode I ever saw of it, I was like, this is funny.
Yeah.
I recognize Malcolm in the Middle is a good show. My first introduction to Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just never a show that I saw week to week. It was kind of like, oh, I came home from school, and if it happened to be on, I'd watch an episode here or there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I couldn't tell you any funny bits other than I remember one episode where Malcolm's mom, she worked at like a Walgreens kind of place, and there was an uprising with the staff, and like the fat guy who was like our boss was like locked in the thing, and they had like shopping carts that they were using as a battering ram. So it kind of became this like Helm's Deep battle in the store. And I was just like, this is a cool episode.
That's cool. Yeah, I've seen them all. I don't remember that, but I'm excited. I hope they get everyone back. I don't want like, oh, Dewey's a rich and famous actor now, and he's off doing a movie. That's why he's not in the show. I want everyone to come back. And then we got a new trailer. There's been a couple trailers. I saw one for, it's like a hold your breath, last gasp, last final breath, something like that. About a guy in a scuba suit in a submersion tank on a freighter that's going through a storm, and his tether breaks. I saw it twice before my movies today. I don't really care, but I wonder if it's their next thing they're trying to push. It's like a February release.
Okay.
But did you see the trailer for 28 Years Later?
Yeah.
That's a fucking great trailer.
Yeah.
The music, which I guess is an old World War One or two poem, is fucked up. It really sets this like pace of the marching and the degraded sound and the scared emotion coming out of his voice. It just really kind of put you in this mood. It was great.
Yeah. Uh, I after that trailer came out, I was like, let me go on YouTube and then kind of look up some old clips of 28 Days Later, and it's so weird because it's not really that old of a movie, but it is old, but it looks cheap.
Yeah.
But I think this new trailer looks great. I mean, it still looks like the same style, obviously directed by Danny Boyle. It's definitely keeping the visual aesthetic, but it's not nearly. It's
Digital
definitely more.
wasn't as good.
Yeah,
back
it's
in the
definitely more
day.
crisp now.
Oh yeah, the other one almost feels like found footage.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I liked 28 Weeks Later.
Hell yeah. One of the best horror movie openings of all time.
Yeah, terrifying. Just that whole franchise is great. You know, it's crazy to think that there's such a big gap in between 2 and 3.
I don't know why
but it doesn't feel like a cash grab.
They're just.
I mean, I get it. It is IP, so of course it's a well to go back to. But at least it's IP from Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, like proven quality filmmakers.
Yeah, it's not other people coming back to reap the rewards and make their own thing. But I don't know why they didn't do 28 months. It could have been a straight to DVD thing. That's fine. It just has this progression of days, weeks, months, years, and we just skipped over months and went to because going from 28 weeks later, which what is that, like 5-6 months?
Yeah, give or take.
To 28 years, like that's such a huge jump. You needed the 28 months. That's 2 years, 4 months, and I don't know what was the world like, because at the end of 28 weeks they were all running into France.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine 2 years being so drastically different, but I mean, I think from what I read, like, yeah, they of course talked about doing 28 months, but then, time went by and it just got later and later and later. And it's like, okay, well, 28 months just doesn't make sense anymore. We can just do 28 years. But I mean, there's nothing stopping them. Like, if this does really, really well, they can go like, oh, well, this one will be a prequel and sort of like do some connective tissue that maybe they set up in 28 years.
Maybe.
But if they never make 28 months, I won't be disappointed. But
it's fine.
It was a good trailer. I'm looking forward to it. Looks like a lot of fun.
You know what's coming out next year? A new Final Destination movie. And I was looking up like the release dates, and it was like, for a while, it's like every 3 years another Final Destination movie came out. And
just before it's leaving your brain.
Yeah, and boom, here's another one.
Coming back.
And it's like pretty consistent throughout its all of its runtime. And it's one of the most consistent like series too. Even the bad ones are still like fun to watch. You may not care about the cast, but all the deaths are good in some way.
Sure.
But I'm excited for that. But we'll talk about that.
I'm not.
Some other time.
Sure.
All right, let's get into real stuff that we saw. I'll go first since I probably have a little bit more.
Okay.
I'll do a quick one. Batman Unburied Dead City, I believe is what it's called.
Fallen City. And I only know this because I saw the commercial for it like a minute before you got here.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I forgot that exists.
Yeah. So it's following up the Riddler one.
Yeah, which I liked a lot.
And it's Coleman Domingo as Batman, and Jason Isaacs is Alfred, and Gina Rodriguez is either
Gina Rodriguez. Sorry,
is either Batgirl. Yeah, I think she's Batgirl.
Yes, and Marina Bracken.
She was in that last one, but she's not in this one. I think
I saw her in the commercial. I forget who she's playing, or maybe
really?
Yeah, I think she's in this.
Okay, then she's playing. Spoilers. Do you care? Are you gonna?
No, I mean, I'm sure. I think they had it on there. I just forget what it was.
Talia al Ghul.
That makes sense.
Okay. But this is a Court of Owls story that, in the last episode, dips into a Ra's al Ghul story, and then the Court of Owls just are kind of nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You listened to all of it.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, I
Okay.
listened to all of it. And then, there's Batman and Two-Face and another guy, trying to make the city better. And it's all pretty good, but it feels a little formulaic of,
Sure.
okay, how do we mix these three? Let's do Two-Face, Ra's al Ghul, and Court of Owls. How do you make that story? Okay, cool. And you could pick and pull out anybody and drop in someone else, and it wouldn't be that different, but it's good enough. I think all the acting performances and the sound effects they do, it's a really good production, and the story all makes sense. It's all very logical, but it's not anything so crazy you've never heard before.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think the Riddler one had a little more sauce to it.
Yeah, I really liked. Now I'm turning to you. What's the guy's name? The guy who played Riddler.
I do not know.
Fuck. Daily Show. Anyway, I really liked the Riddler one. I didn't necessarily love Coleman Domingo as Batman, but it's fine. Batman. It's fine. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll have to check. It's every episode is what, like roughly 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, they're like 22 to 27.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I had to drive pretty far for a office Christmas party, and I had
a great time, Ben. Thanks for having me.
I didn't have any like pressing podcasts or anything, and it was just on my Spotify. I'm like, yeah, this is the perfect time. And I almost finished it perfectly. Like on the way there, on the way back, I still had like 12 minutes left of the final episode to listen to.
I would have just sat in the car and finished it.
No, it took an hour and a half to get there, an hour and a half to get back. Half the time of my party time was driving, so yeah, I wanted to get home.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I lied to myself. I said I was going to see Lord of the Rings afterwards. I would come home and just go straight to the theater, and nope, turned right into my complex. All right, you got something?
Yeah, let's talk about the Game Awards real quick.
Okay, cool.
Astrobot won Game of the Year. Congratulations.
I'm totally fine with that.
Me too, although I'm surprised. I figured it would have been either Wukong or Elden Ring, because usually they kind of go with the big sort of fantasy sci-fi action game sort of things. But
Wukong is just a bunch of boss battles, and it's nothing new, and the other one's a DLC.
I wouldn't want Elden Ring already won Game of the Year.
Yeah.
I don't want the DLC to win Game of the Year.
I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought it's silly, but I don't know the qualifications, so I'm glad Astrobot won.
It's a polished game.
I'm just saying, I was surprised. But anyway, I don't care about who won best.
Yeah, who's the best streamer?
Who did the best voice performance on whatever game, best action. All that's great. I hope everyone wins all the awards.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. But what I do look forward to for the Game Awards is like, what's coming out? Mm-hmm. What do I have to look forward to? What's the time frame on it? There's only two things that were announced where I'm just like, I'm definitely going to be checking those out.
Okay.
One, Witcher 4.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not like, I read a lot of fantasy books, haven't read any of the Witcher books. I watched the Henry Cavill Witcher show, gave it 2 seasons. Even the 2 seasons of him, I was just like, this is fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad,
no,
but it was fine. So I'm not like a Witcher guy. And Witcher 3, I've told the story in the podcast when I played it. I rented it one time from the library, played it for like 2 hours, like, this game sucks, not into it. And it became like free or like for $5 or whatever on sale one day during COVID times, and I played it. And boy, howdy, what a fantastic game. Yeah. Beautiful. I was blown away. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to play 4. You never played any of it, right? Okay.
I would be more likely to play that than any of the other Souls-like.
Yeah.
Because
it's not hard.
Way more accessible, and there's a lot more to do that
There's so much to do.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful to look at, and it's fun and an interesting story, and get to do and get to participate in lots of stories. And travel the multiverse and weird shit like that. Anywho. And then
you're going to have to play as a girl now.
Oh, darn.
Shucks.
I haven't played 15,000 other games as a girl.
And, okay, it never made sense to me. If you are the greasy neckbeard type who hates that, like, oh, you're going to make me play as a girl, but these are also the guys who like lust after women and are incels and they're pissed off that pretty girls, don't like it, blah 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 blah. Okay, but when you're playing a character, don't you want to like look at a girl character? Why do you want to look at a guy character? Because that's not you. I know you're supposed to like pretend it's you, but like, wouldn't you'd rather look at a dude's butt than over a girl's butt when your character's running in front of you? I don't know. Seems a little sus.
I don't want to even begin to go down this rabbit hole of nonsense. But I mean, I imagine anyone wants to put themselves into, like, project themselves into this game because you are making all the moves. You may be making story choices depending on the type of game, and you would love to imagine yourself. Every guy wants to be the hero of his own story and slay dragons.
But not every game has a created character, and sometimes you just have to play as the character.
But I imagine for some people it's easier to go like, well, I'm a guy, I recognize this guy character for whatever connection. And then at the same time, it's like, oh, if I played a guy for 3 games and now I'm a girl, well, it's like, well, no, Geralt's the character I like and I've played with all these years. Let me stick with him. Whatever. Fine criticism. I can get that. But it's dumb. I don't care. It's like, if give me a good game with a good story, like the idea if they're just like, well, a girl wouldn't have the physical arm strength to chop off whatever compared to, it's like, dude,
there's magic.
It's magic.
Magic.
You're fighting creatures that don't exist. It's all nonsense.
And especially you're showing your true colors about the story because it makes sense for that character to evolve and become the Witcher, right? So
you would think.
That just seems like a duh thing. And I know with The Last of Us, I wanted to play as Joel or whatever, but like you can't keep around things at expense for the story. If you have a story to tell and the lead character has to be a woman, then so be it. That's what it is. Deal with it. Anywho, but the other game,
The Witcher 4, if it never comes out, I won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
But, it got me interested. But the game, I cannot wait to play. The game that, I would buy probably just blind and assume it's good.
Yep.
Is Naughty Dog's Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet. I don't necessarily love the name.
Yeah, but I'm sure it makes sense.
Sure.
Once it's done, you'll be like, yeah, of course you got to call it that.
And the trailer, no real gameplay.
Just a little snippet, but that could be cut.
I never believe anything until I see like an IGN review or
and you got to be able to like see their bars and the HUD when they're playing, so you know it's
obviously
real.
From a cutscene perspective. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's a sci-fi game where you're on a distant planet and you're fighting robot alien creatures and you got an energy sword, and the trailer doesn't really tell you much about other than like I guess you're kind of a bounty hunter and Kumail Nanjiani's in it.
Yeah, a bunch of people.
And Tony Dalton.
Yeah.
So that's like what we saw was enough for me to go like, yep, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah. Because it's also not Last of Us.
Yeah.
It wasn't a ultra super
I mean, don't get me wrong, if it was Last of Us.
If it was Last of Us 3?
Yeah.
Okay, crazy, cool. But they have relied so heavily on their old IP for so long. It's nice to see that they've been working on something else.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that there's a pilot the ship element. I always enjoy piloting spaceships in sci-fi games. To some degree, I don't necessarily want to
no Rogue Squadron shit.
I don't even do
more like Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a little bit of that, and not too hard to get past.
So hopefully it comes out in 2025, and there's not some big delay that pushes it back to 2026. But whatever, it's going to come out when it's going to come out. As long as it's great and ready and complete.
Yeah.
That's all I want. Mm-hmm. So excited for Intergalactic.
Yeah, I thought we'd see Wolverine because that's supposed to be next year. So I don't know if that's a issue. It's going to get pushed back again or anything like that. But yeah, everything else I was playing this looks really cool. I'm happy for the people who like this series, but most of it I didn't care for.
Yeah.
But then I saw that big old electric buzzsaw sword and Naughty Dog. I'm like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so far Naughty Dog hasn't let me down. So I hopefully they keep that streak going.
All right. I watched a new show on something. What was it on? Max Prime? I don't remember. Secret Level?
Oh yeah, I did watch
You
some of
didn't?
I did watch some of them.
Okay.
Only 3.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't really care about the other ones. I know there's more coming out.
Yeah, next week. Like next Thursday, I think.
I'll watch the Mega Man one when that comes out.
I think you should watch all of them. There's
after the 3 I watched, I'll give my reasons why I don't care about the other ones.
okay.
I'm not saying I won't watch them.
Well, you're missing
Pitch it to me.
A couple of the best ones.
Okay.
So, it is it's from the creators of Love, Death, and Robots. It's an anthology series, but instead of random comedy and sci-fi, they're all based on games. And not just video games, but any type of game. Which led to my confusion at one point. But there is 8 of them that are out now. There's going to be 7 more next week. And these are awesome. I liked pretty much all of them. I think there's a good enough reason to watch all of them, even if you are uninterested in their concepts. I'm going to say my biggest criticism of this season so far is in Love, Death, and Robots, everything had its own unique style.
Mm-hmm.
And this, every single one, except for like one of them, goes for hyper realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose a little bit of the artistry, and everyone was just wanting to show you how lifelike they can make their characters, and they all do an excellent job. But I want something a little fun as well. Like the Mega Man one could be really fun, and I know it's not as hyper realistic as these other ones. It's still, what if Mega Man was kind of realistic? Like, do I really need that? But all of them are good, and I'm going to just do a quick ranking.
Okay, hit me with it.
So I'd say my least favorite one is number 7, Crossfire Good Conflict. I thought it was based off the board game where you're shooting little BBs at each other. Crossfire, you get caught up in the crossfire. great little game. You're shooting these little like objects off into the other.
So you thought board games were included in Secret Level?
Well, D&D is a tabletop game, so it doesn't have to be based off of a specific...
You got me there. Touche.
Yeah. But it's not. There is a video game called Crossfire, but it is the same sort of idea. You know, shooting from opposite sides, sure. And it's an escort thing. It looks really good, but I just didn't really care about the story at all. The next least favorite one is Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that really swings for the fences, does something different, and it has a little more unique look than all the other ones. And I applaud them for going nuts. Like, take it to the crazy
for the audacity.
Sort of, yeah, you could think of 10 different ways to take Pac-Man, and they went really weird. I think if you took out the little Pac-Man orb that's following him around, you would not be able to identify this as a Pac-Man thing. And it has like some kind of gore in it too. It's strange. But
so is Pac-Man the villain in this game?
No, he's like an unwilling participant.
Okay.
And then the little Pac-Man Waka 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 thing is like an AI in his head, and it's following him around, like telling him to do stuff and defeat the ghosts. And he's swinging around a sword, and he's so hungry he's just got to eat. It's weird. It's very weird.
Okay.
So then my next least favorite one is probably Sifu. No,
okay.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a good pitch for, hey, this is kind of the deal with Dungeons and Dragons. Look at the things you can do without getting too technical.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be you're pitching someone to play the actual tabletop game, or if you're pitching for a movie, this was good and fun and cool. But I've seen it before in different ways. Then I would say it's probably Sifu. Seafood is great. It's only like 7 minutes long. This is an excellent trailer for the game. If you are expecting story, don't worry about it. It is just, this is what the game is about. You have really cool fights, you die, you get older, and get back up and keep fighting. And there is a sweet little story in it with a little shop owner, but don't expect to get into the actual story of the game. But some of the best fighting in the whole series. That glass bridge fight, pretty damn cool. Then I'd say number 3, New World, The Once and Future King. This is probably the funniest out of all of them. Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as a big buff guy. I don't know this game. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger as a big buff guy. What, did yours play in a different order?
I didn't watch that one.
You said you watched 3.
I watched 3 of them, yes.
That's number 3.
I didn't watch them in order.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. I watched the 3 I wanted to watch.
Got it.
And there's a 4th one I was like, I'll probably check that one out.
Okay. And he's like a pompous king who gets stranded on an island, and when you die, you just like wake back up the same morning. You just live over and over and over again.
Day.
Yeah, kind of. But everybody who is on the island, it happens to. It's
okay.
like, and then there's a king there, and he's like, I'm going to try to become the king, but he sucks at everything, so he just keeps dying over and over again. I will say this one, he has like a little butler sidekick character, his little punching bag. There's a shot of him talking to Schwarzenegger that looks so fucking real. I thought it was the actor. It is beautiful. It took me out for a second because not that it's so much different than everything else, but everything hit so perfectly for these couple of frames. It's awe-inspiring.
Okay.
It was amazing. All right, next one would be...
So this is the top 2 now, right? Or
top 3.
Top 3, okay.
Number 8, Armored Core Asset Management.
That's the one I haven't watched, but I'm probably check out the one with the giant mechs.
Yeah, and it's got Keanu Reeves.
Oh, no shit.
He's the dude. And this one looks really good. Really fun action. And it has a moment of like really horrific gore that I didn't see coming. And it's pretty fucked up. But a good time.
Okay.
I could totally see this being the pitch for a bigger and better movie. Then number 2 would be Warhammer 40K, and They Shall Know No Fear.
That's one I also watched.
Big guys in suits fucking up shit and killing people in slow-mo and weird squid head things. And I don't understand the lore of this because it's 80
You never will,
big.
Ben.
But this is pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. But the best one is number 4, Unreal Tournament Zan. This
Did not
one,
watch.
It's so simple. It's just, look, arena fights. Humans versus robots. Arena fights. Robots always die. But one of them got bonked on the head and he's gained sentience. And now he's taken over some of the other ones. And they're fighting back. And they're starting a revolution. And people are feeling for robots. And really good robot design. Just fun little things like a robot gets in front of our main one. And he like turns his body around and puts his arms up and uses himself as a shield as it's walking backwards. It just, like, the functionality of all these robots are really fun to watch. And it was the most fun out of all of them. So that's my number 1.
Cool.
Which ones did you watch?
All right. I watched Warhammer, Sifu, and Dungeons & Dragons.
Okay.
Because I've played Dungeons & Dragons, I played Sifu, and I'm aware enough of Warhammer to be interested. And I would say of the 3, D&D was the weakest. Like you said, as someone who's played it and, has looked at some of the lore, it was all fine. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't lie to you in any way.
Yeah.
And it was fun seeing some of the nods, some of the moves you can do. And obviously Tiamat is one of the, most famous D&D creatures. So, it's like throwing in the Joker into a Batman thing. But what I wanted from these is more what my criticism of this series for me is not so much that they all look the same, even though I haven't seen the other half. It's just that of the 3 that I saw, none of them were like really contained stories other than I think Sifu had a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And the other ones were just like, here is a scene that we pulled from this episode of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was kind of frustrating because like with D&D, it's like, here's this party and you want to care about the party, but you only have 8 minutes to care. And so you're not gonna, and it's just like, oh, look at the creatures that from the series that you guys like, here they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't care that much. Then Warhammer was my number 2. Lots of fun action, very badass. Would love to see these guys like continue on. But once again, it was just like, here's this, you have this cool like thing of just like, oh, here was this orphan kid who like had no fear. What a badass. and he's the one who's able to bring this thing down. But you like get one line of dialogue from that guy, and you like it's really just a tease of just like look at the potential of Warhammer.
Yeah.
But it gives me
a pitch video.
Yeah, it really gives you nothing other than doesn't this look cool?
Yeah. You want to know the lore? Fuck you. Read 40,000 books.
Yeah. But I really liked Sifu. One, because it looked different. Two, the bridge fight is excellent. The action in that whole thing is sweet. But it's because it had the beginning part of just like him as a young man talking to that old woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets to the end and they're back there. Now he's this old man. And just that line of just like, I put 60 years into this soup. Was it worth it? It's like, you tell me. I'm like, this thing, it lasted 8 minutes and had a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
Like, that's the shit I want. That's the shit that pretty much all the episodes of Love, Death, and Robots had. They had a full story in a short amount of time, where not all of these are just fucking cutscenes.
Yeah.
At least from the bit I saw, I'll be fair and say, like, I don't know about the other ones if they will captivate me more.
Once and Future King would satisfy that.
Okay. So that's my I think these should have been 15 to 22 minute long, and kind of just I'm not I don't expect to cry at the end of these things or like expect every detail to be explained to me. That's okay, but you got to give me something to work with. Make me care for. Give me something to hold on to other than just like, oh, it's cool to see a game I like in
that's really
a
pretty.
visual format like this.
Yep.
If you're going to do it, actually do it. That's my problem.
And I guess the Pac-Man one is getting turned into an actual game. It looks more like a Metroidvania sort of game where you're this guy with the sword. Okay. It's weird, but
whatever. I'm not going to play it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, before we move on, I want to talk about one game. It's coming to PS5, but it just came out this week, and I didn't care about it at all. It seemed like a cash grab. It's also first person, which I know you and I both don't like. But the reviews for Indiana Jones: The Golden Circle are through the roof.
Yeah.
When it comes to PS5, do you think you're going to play it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not that invested in that universe, and first person.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I don't know. It just nothing about it really. Like, look, we recreated the Boulder scene. Like, yep, sure did. Okay, am I just shooting Nazis and it's all brown? Okay, I can't see.
I hear the story is great.
Okay.
And it is actually fun.
I know you get to take pictures of cats. That's cool.
And the whole Boulder scene is just like the tutorial to learn how to play the game. And the rest is just an original idea. I mean, it's still like fighting Nazis and I'm sure like magical items or whatever, but it's like a lot of more like puzzle solving and stuff. And there's action, but like, it's not, you're not grabbing guns and like mowing people down because that's not really what Indy did. I mean, you still can use a gun, but I don't know. I'll wait.
You got other games to play.
I know. I'm not rushing to get it. I'm just saying I'm surprised, and I may get it if things continue to go positively. But we'll see.
Well, since we're talking about games,
just jump right in.
More games.
I briefly talked about it last week. I'll just say I've completed Alan Wake 2. I beat the game. Really, really liked it. Just real quick, combat-wise, it's basically The Last of Us again, but I love that game, so it was very easy to jump back into that world. The first game, the combat sucked, and it was pretty much like, I think, two different...
developers?
No, two different enemy types.
Oh. From
what I remember, it wasn't really like exciting. You weren't really mixing and matching. There's a couple of different more enemy types. The story is greatly expanded. It's fucking weird, but like still you can kind of grasp what it's doing. It's not Control weird, even though it is from the same company. And because I got the deluxe edition, it came with all the DLC of like sort of mini quests that you can do that were just optional. So I did all of them, and they're all basically connected to the Control universe.
Oh, okay.
Except for one. The first one is kind of like Alan Wake's biggest fan, and it's kind of like this dream Barbie sequence where she is just like, I have to save Alan, and she gets a shotgun, and she basically has unlimited ammo, and she's just like mowing all these bad guys down to go save her like one true love, and like everything has this like pink hue to it, and it's just real silly and kind of fun. And then the next one is you actually play as the main character from Control, but it's like before she gets to the building, so she doesn't have superpowers yet. And then there's another one where it's basically just like a mini, like you go into sort of a Control facility somewhere else. It's nowhere nearly as weird, but it has all the same sort of Control elements. But the last one is the fucking best one. It's called Timekeeper, and Sean Ashmore is an actor in the game, and he's like a town sheriff or whatever who you run into, and then he disappears like in chapter 2 of this game, and then you just kind of see him pop up. He's kind of like this Desmond Weird constant who you like keep running into like randomly into buildings. He's like in the dark place. You only see him in the like Alan Wake levels because you're Alan and then this new character Saga. And he's just like trying to figure out like what the dark place is and like how he got here and what's the connection to everything. But in his thing, it kept throwing me for a loop because you're him, and then suddenly you are the actor Sean Ashmore talking to the creator of the Alan Wake game about the game you're currently in. And not like, because there is some like live action elements to it. You're never the live action version of Sean Ashmore. But the guy's just like, yeah, you were this character and you have this device that makes you like travel in between dimensions and worlds and stuff. And Sean Ashmore's like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. But then, he teleports and whatever. Long story short, he's like going to different worlds. And like at one point he like kind of recognizes he might be in a video game. And there's like a 16-bit version where you're playing as him. And then there's like there's one where it's like a kind of like more Oregon Trail sort of. I mean, not Oregon Trail, but it's just like all like
clip art.
No, it's like dialogue choice game. It's like so depending on what you choose changes the thing. But that's like 8-bit or whatever. And then the last bit is like you're in a comic book and you're talking to the main character from Control about traveling in between worlds and stuff, and how once again like how they're connected, and you could be in a video game now, but there might be someone like who's playing the game here who might be connected to another version of you that you like don't even realize. It's like, it was just tripping me the fuck out, and it was so cool. And there was one more thing I wanted to say about it. I think doesn't matter. It's just a ton of fun and like big ideas, and kind of gives you like a tease, I think, for Control 2 whenever that comes out. But it just was a ton of fun and super trippy and just awesome. And that's just a DLC part.
Yeah, sounds fun.
But ultimately, altogether, Alan Wake 2, better in every way than Alan Wake 1. My only real criticism is it is kind of long if you're trying to do like, you do a lot of backtracking if you want to like collect everything. And so like once I got to like the back half of the game, I was just like kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I'm just like, I kind of just want to like get through the story. And then the final boss of the game is just kind of like putting post-it notes on a case board because you're a detective. And so like the final level of the game isn't you fighting some big bad. There is like a boss fight, but then there's still like an hour and a half left of the game where it's just kind of you
wrapping it up.
And it was just kind of like a weird way to end. But I don't know, altogether super fun. Also jump scared me 20 plus times, because there's just this element of just like you could just be walking through a door and the game would go like just real loud, because I always had headphones on as I played it and the lights down because I wanted to try and immerse myself in the horror element to it. So it like legitimately made me jump constantly. But I wouldn't say the game is scary. It's just good at like just coming out of nowhere with this like loud sudden burst on the screen,
ratcheting up the tension.
So yeah, super fun. I recommend it. I think you would need to play Alan Wake 1, but you probably won't. You might not understand Alan Wake 1, so maybe just watch like a YouTube recap, and you can just jump into 2 without playing Alan Wake 1. Okay. But if you like weird horror, multi-dimensional, cool, crazy stuff, and horror, it's right up your alley.
Cool. It's something I would play. Just give me some time.
Okay.
All right. I watched a new. Which one do I want to do? Do the movie first. I saw a new Netflix movie. It's called Carry On with Taron Egerton. And Bateman.
I saw this trailer for the first time like a week and a half ago. First off, for the idea of the movie, fantastic title. This is something you and I would have pitched as a title. I love it. Anyway, continue.
Oh, I thought you were going to make another point.
No. I just think it's a great title for this movie.
A pretty basic premise. It's Die Hard in an airport. I know that's Die Hard 2. But Die Hard in an airport and phone booth and cellular. Bad guy on the phone telling you what to do.
Yeah.
But everyday, normal guy flunked out of being a cop.
But like 90% of this movie takes place on the plane, or no?
No, in an airport.
Oh, they're never in the plane.
For a little bit at the end.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So he is a baggage x-ray tech guy. It's Christmas Eve, busiest day. His freshly pregnant girlfriend also works at the airport. He kind of got a job there just to be close to her. But since he flunked out of being a cop, he's been kind of like spiraling,
Why did he flunk out as a cop? Did they explain it?
Yeah, it was a question on it about what was it?
Do you ever want to let criminals get away with it?
It's something like a morality sort of thing, and he was taking a stance in a certain way. I can't actually remember because the movie it's a little long. It's over 2 hours.
Okay.
But Jason Bateman is a bad guy, and he gets him on an earpiece saying, "Hey, you got to let a bag through, or I'm going to kill your girlfriend. And I could kill a whole lot of other people too, your coworkers, families. I can make your life really bad. Just let this one package go through." And then so he's just grappling. Who is this guy? I could hear him in the earpiece. I could hear the baby crying in real life and in the earpiece. So he's in this vicinity. You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like people just being able to get up and walk away from their station to go to the bathroom without telling anyone, especially when you have a line of people
on the business day. Yeah.
Or he goes into a bathroom and the bad guy goes in there too, and they're having a talk of like, "You listen to me, motherfucker, you got to do what I say," and nobody comes in just because they put a wet floor sign in front of the door. No, people are going to be busting into that bathroom. So just forget all that.
Sure.
Just have fun with it because it's a really fun movie. Everyone's really good in it. Jason Bateman is kind of scary at times with how blasé he is about human life, but he also is on the phone with him too much. So he's just like, "So, Ethan, how come you're a big fucking loser?" And just like asks him of his whole life story and then dissects him and uses it against him. And it's a little silly because it just feels like we need to tell the audience about who you are and your motivation for all this. It's just all exposition dumped through the whole thing.
I love exposition,
but it's still a really good time. It's fun. It's tense. It gets your heart up, and I can see maybe this could be a new Die Hard, because not always in an airport or anything, but now that this guy, spoilers, I don't care, you shouldn't matter, he goes to become a cop, after he saves the day and everything, he becomes a cop. They have their baby, perfect life, happy ending. And I could see him going, we got to move out of, I think they're in LA or San Francisco, but it doesn't matter. Like, we're going to go settle down somewhere. And then, just like John McClane, he gets caught up in another thing. And why not? We could use a new John McClane. We're not getting the old John McClane anytime soon. So, and why not Taron Egerton? He's perfect for that.
I like Taron Egerton.
Yeah.
And, all right, last question, then we'll move on to the next thing. So it takes place at Christmas in an airport. You saying this is the new Die Hard? At any point, does he get a machine gun and say "ho ho ho"?
No, he does not. I don't think he uses. No, he gets a gun at one point. Yeah, he does get a gun.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I might check it out.
Yeah, I think you should. I think it's a good time. You have a stand-up special?
Yeah, I occasionally will check out some stand up. My parents visited and we had a little mini Christmas here because they live far away. So we just kind of did it early. And they were telling me like, I always ask them like, what are you guys watching nowadays? And they're like, I watched the stand up special. It made me laugh. Anthony Jeselnik's new stand up special,
Yeah.
Bones and All on Netflix. I've seen plenty of Anthony Jeselnik stuff. He's not for everybody.
Yeah.
His,
and your parents watched it?
Yeah, my parents will watch anything.
Okay.
Typically. Also, my parents like a little bit of the darker humor from time to time, which is certainly his thing. It's all pretty much just one-liners, and here's the premise, but here's the twist, and then it's a fucked up twist. But it was pretty funny. I like his stuff. I'm not like an Anthony Jeselnik super fan or anything like that, but I just appreciate his form of comedy because I don't know anyone else who's really doing it that style, where all the jokes are very quick. It's not like a bunch of long stories to get to some big reveal. It's just like
no crazy voices.
Yeah, it's just like my sister's dealing with this problem. I told her this, and then actually it was about this. Ha ha ha. Very simple, very quick. My favorite joke in it, I'm not even sure if it's like that great of a joke, but it's just one I really liked was I have this nephew and he was getting bullied. And so I told him, hey, next time someone gets in your face and gives you a hard time, you just punch him right in the face. And my nephew says, Uncle Anthony, I can't do that. That's toxic masculinity. So I was going to take that shit from him. And that was just the joke. It's so simple and dumb. But anyway, if you like dark, mess up humor about, rape and killing babies and all that other stuff, this guy's for you. And but it's never like feels trashy, it's never just like
classic dead baby
it's never just like, I mean, obviously it's there is shock value to it, but it's just like it's gallows humor. It's just taking something awful and making a funny joke out of it. It's all well constructed jokes. It's not like I mean, there is like trans jokes, but it's not like let me just shit on trans people for 30 minutes.
Existing,
it's just nothing like that. It's just like it's just making fun of anything and everything that people say you shouldn't. And it's all in good good faith, I think. And if you like that kind of stuff, check out Anthony Jeselnik. If you've seen any of his other stuff, it's the exact same. You know what you're getting into. You already like him. But yeah, I laughed all the way through it. It's a good stand-up special.
I have something that maybe you could recommend to your parents. It's a new show on Netflix called A Man on the Inside with.
I believe they were talking to me about.
Yeah. Okay. It's the perfect parent show.
Yeah.
Because like if you love Michael Schur,
I do,
but maybe The Office and Parks and Rec is a little cringy. Maybe it's not their type of humor. Brooklyn Nine-Nine maybe is a little too silly, immature at times, and even at times like maybe too woke for some people. They had issues that they focused on. Maybe that's not your thing. And maybe you don't want to get too existential with The Good Place and don't want to think too hard. This is...
Do you want something dumb as fuck? And
no, if you just want something nice, like you like Ted Lasso, you'll probably like this.
Okay.
It's not exactly the same, but Ted Danson is such a likable person. He's so giddy and silly, and but he's like a very smart guy in it, and he had just lost his wife a year ago to Alzheimer's. And so he has kind of a strained relationship with his daughter. They love each other and they're in contact, but they just didn't have the same relationship she did with her mom. So she suggests to him, get a hobby, do something. You just do nothing all day, or like you have your routine and it can't be that fulfilling. So he answers a Craigslist ad about they need someone on the inside at a nursing home. This is a hoity-toity nursing home in San Francisco. It's probably $100,000 a month. It's ridiculously nice. They could come and go as they please, and everything's provided. And but someone had a necklace stolen, and so the woman's son hires them to go in and figure it out. And it's him making friends with the elderly people and gathering clues, but it also focuses on like grief and loss and losing your mental and physical abilities, not being in contact with your loved ones, loneliness. It's like all these things that you don't want to think about, but happen all the time for older people. I think it's good for younger people to watch as well. So, as their parents are getting older, like kind of keep this shit in mind.
Well, mine aren't. I don't care. So I'm not.
They'll never die. But it's a really nice story with fun characters that you like. It's harmless. It's not vulgar in any sort of way. It's just a nice show.
I like nice shows. I think we need more of them.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, you're recommending some good stuff here, Ben. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I said the best thing for last. Kraven, baby! Kraven the Hunter! Brr, brr, brr.
All right, strap in for the next 45 minutes. I haven't seen it, so let's get into it.
So, shockingly, this movie's bad. I don't think anyone saw it coming. This was the last hope of the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel movies. And unfortunately, it's just as bad as all the other ones, but it's hard to say if it's worse than some of them, because Venom's bad, but it has its shining moments of weirdness, and at least has some pretty good effects in him. And Morbius is so funny to laugh at, but it's really stupid. And Madam Web, swings wildly for all things bad.
Was that a pun intended, or?
Oh no, not really. I was thinking more pendulum, but
okay,
yeah. Well, you can't make that joke because nobody swings on webs in that movie.
That's true.
But this one is so boring. It's dull. It's like just either blue and gray or brown. I think he's fine as Kraven, but when you don't do Kraven how he should be, and you don't have a Spider-Man,
you're also competing with the game version that just came out, which is
exactly
devastating.
And if you have these parameters of no Spider-Man, no, he's got to be a good guy, no, he's a friend to the animals, when you start changing so much, I guess this is as good as you can get with that. But it could have been...
He's a friend to the animals?
Yeah, he's not really a hunter. He hunts the bad guys, the poachers, drug dealers, because his dad's a bad guy, and they fell out of grace. Well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. They had a falling out.
Yeah.
And so he's like,
did he used to hunt animals with his dad?
Yeah, his dad would take him out because he got to make him and his brother like tougher because they're a bunch of Nancys. And like the big lion that attacks Kraven, he has a gun on it and he doesn't shoot, and his dad shoots him, but then the lion goes nuts and kills Kraven. And the whole thing like, oh, why didn't you shoot? You're a Kravenowski or whatever the fuck they're called. And yeah, but they're both not Mary Sue's.
Sorry, the lion kills
Kraven and drags his body off. But then this random girl, her name is Calypso, she's on vacation with her parents. And her grandma gave her a vial that said, this is a super secret magic potion that runs in our family. And I won't tell you what's in it, where it comes from, the ingredients, nothing like that. But you take this and it will bring anyone who's about to die back to life, and with crazy side effects. And it just so happens a couple minutes later, she sees this lion dragging a boy and gives it to him. And it gives him his Kraven powers. That's as much of an explanation of how he got it. There is a little part where like he's bloody and the lion's blood drips into his wound.
Okay.
But he doesn't really do anything lion-like. I mean, he runs on all fours at sometimes, but it just doesn't make any sense. It's so hand-wavy. The whole movie is just, he gets power. He's got powers. He's got to get them somehow. It's a vial of stuff. Shut up. Let's move on. And
I can just see the pitch meeting for this on YouTube.
It's going to be fantastic.
What about this? Doesn't matter.
So... yeah, let's see, good and bad, good and bad.
Give me the good, because I imagine it's going to be a lot shorter.
The good stuff, I think he's perfectly fine as Kraven, and I don't mind his running around acting like an animal. His parkour and climbing up the side of the building. He has some good action moments. They're just a little small. This movie doesn't go big until the Rhino fight, and even that's not really that big. But the flip of fun action sequences, there is some shoddy CG. You know, he can't actually climb up a building, and you can tell it's a digital double. But I'm fine with that. It's the Rhino stuff that looks bad. He's stupid looking. It's like they can't get this character right. And we also get Chameleon in it. His brother's Chameleon, and they set it up a little bit like he's doing an impression of their dad, Russell Crowe, and they're like, "Oh, you're getting pretty good at that." And he imitates some of the goons that kidnap him later. So it's like, okay, cool, that's his thing. They at least set that up. I'm like, well, how can he change his face? It's just a thing at the very end. Like, I found a doctor in New York. I think it's the same doctor that worked on the Rhino and gave him his powers.
Okay.
And he just like gave me a chameleon face. So I got a chameleon face now. So it's that blank white face, and he could just turn into anybody. He even turns into Aaron Taylor Johnson, but he's like a foot shorter. So you kind of got this like little mini Aaron Taylor Johnson. It was really silly looking, and it just happens at the
I don't
end.
know enough about the actual chameleon, but I imagine he could change a size and the.
No, he just changed his face.
Okay.
Chameleon just was able to change his face, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't like Clayface, or he could grow big or smaller.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he could turn into Venom or anything, but he could just any sort of basic human being.
No, it was just, I think, always a face thing.
Oh,
yeah. Right. It's not like he's there to imitate superheroes. It's like he imitates politicians and other people. But yeah, it's just so boring. The first couple of minutes is pretty promising, and then it just goes downhill. And the Calypso person, I guess she won an Academy Award recently, but she's bad. She has some really bad lines in it. You could tell this is all studio meddling. They have the same issues with ADR-ing lines that they did with Madam Web. They're not as noticeable. Yeah, it's just it's a whole lot of nothing. It could have been a lot more fun, especially with the rated R rating. There is some blood, but it almost feels...
Oh, this is rated R?
This is rated R, yeah. Ooh. But it needs to be to the max. Bear trap on the head, you see all of it. You don't just see CG, splatter, and then he falls off screen. There's a guy that gets it's in the trailer, he gets pulled towards a stump and explodes. That's pretty good. But a lot of it's just stabbing in the neck and some blood splatter. It's a pretty weak R compared to, say, Logan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, unless you've actually seen it, there's not much to say. It's just kind of boring.
Well, I'm glad I skipped it.
I'm not.
It's funny. I was at work the other day, and I was telling the guy, I was like, "Oh yeah, I watched War of the Rohirrim," because I knew he was an anime fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, you were a Lord of the Rings fan?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I've only seen one movie or whatever, but that one movie made me a fan, so I'll go see this." It's like. Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
You didn't watch the other movies? You're it made you a fan, but not enough to finish the fucking series?
Yeah. It's just it was just enough where we go okay, I could be into this, but I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of watching all of them. I don't know.
Weirdo.
But then I was just, he saw it, and then the next day I was like, what do you got going on now? He's like, oh, I'm going to go see Kraven. I'm super excited. I was like, it's going to be terrible, right? And he's like, no, man, I hear it's good. I was like, okay, where have you heard that? Because
no one has said
there wasn't reviews until today.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, man, because it takes place in the Spider-Man universe. I was like, yeah, but it has nothing to do with the MCU.
Fooled again?
I was like, it has nothing to do with the MCU. I was like, yeah, it does. It has Rhino in it. Rhino is with the Spider-Man one. It's like, yeah, well, that's a Disney MCU.
How do people not know this by now?
It's just like, yeah, it was the Tobey Maguire one. It's like, oh my God. It was just like, because he thought they were all connected, and I guess technically they are in a sense. But and I was just like, oh, so you like the other ones? Like, oh yeah, the Venom movies are awesome. Woody Harrelson as Carnage was great.
Oh my God.
I could just see in the back of my mind, there's just an image of you, and you're just like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But there are people out there who are excited for this shit.
Damn.
And more power to them. I don't want to diminish or it's all subjective art, right? But we can all generally agree that this is dog shit. But some people are just like, hey man, I'm just happy to like get out the house, see a movie, and if there's some cool action sequences, I'm good, rock and roll. But I was just like, Jesus Christ, like everything he said, I was like, I disagree with you across the board, my
Yeah,
friend.
I would get his top 5 favorite movies of all time. Ask him that. I want to see if it's, oh man,
Baby's Day Out.
it's The Dark Knight, Fight Club, Scarface, Step Brothers.
No, I mean, I think, I don't know. It could be anything, but his thing is anime, so it probably could just be 5 Studio Ghibli movies, which, like, you could argue is like, well, that's 5 good movies,
I
you know?
guess, yeah, but tell him non-anime. What's your top 5 best non-anime movies?
I'll get back to you.
All right. Yeah, I saw this in one of the biggest theaters, Theater 5. 2 people in it besides me. But I did go pretty early,
Okay.
And then, yeah. Do you want to know anything else about Kraven?
No, I don't care. I think you told me everything I needed to know.
No post-credit scene, nothing like that. Final Sony.
I guess my only question is, now that if this is officially the last one, I'll believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the final ranking of Venom, Madam Web, Morbius, Kraven, and that's it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say best one's Madam Web, just because it's the most rewatchable. Not because it's good, because it's rewatchable. All the other ones are not rewatchable.
I haven't even seen the Kraven or the Venom movies, and I guarantee Madam Web is not at the top. But okay,
yeah,
it's your list. That's fine.
And then I guess it would probably be Kraven, then Venom, then Morbius, then Venom 3, then Venom 2.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pour one out for Sony, man. 3 big stinkers.
So, Madam Web, is that a D and the other ones are Fs? Or is, D plus for Madam Web, D for Kraven, and then, what's the rankings here?
See, and that's funny, because I'd probably give, like, Madam Web, I probably gave it, like, let me see what I gave. I probably gave it, like, a D minus. And I gave Kraven a C minus. It's just so average. It's so nothing. But
so from a filmmaking perspective, it's not about what's but this is just your list of like what you would enjoy the most.
Yes,
even though you graded
it may be
poorly,
a worse made movie. It's lower in quality, but like the potential you see in Madam Web is like so much higher, I think.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Potential?
Missed
potential, I guess, but not potential that's there for the taking.
Yeah, I gave it a D minus. So it's like technically in my listing, it's worse. It's more silly fun. If this was a goofy ass movie, I could have loved it, if they really leaned into how stupid it is, but they think these are so important of movies and that they're at the Marvel caliber, and they just aren't. And if they were as goofy as, say, the Venom ones were, but those are like goofy and annoying.
Yeah. Do you know, you're a little bit more in the comic book world than I am. Spider-Man's villains, many of them are just animal-based villains.
Sure.
Have they ever done like a Sinister Six where like Kraven was the guy who kind of started it, and then he like got 5 other dudes of animal types to sort of be his backup, or is it always just kind of just like Doc Ock or Green Goblin started it, and it's just whoever you want to throw in?
Kraven has ran it before, since there's been so many iterations of it. It would be hard to say that it hasn't happened because he has so many animal villains.
Sure.
That it just seems like it would happen on accident.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say yes, but I don't know what issues.
We can cut this. So I just want to ask you. I was flipping through YouTube or Instagram Shorts or whatever the fuck, and it was people going, "Who has the best rogues gallery, Batman or Spider-Man?" And they,
because they're the only two that actually because you can't say
they're definitely the 2 best, right?
Because like X-Men has just like all the mutant villains, and there's no simple team. It's like what one dude who has the best rogues gallery? It's those 2 and no one else.
100%. But you're Team Batman, correct? Okay, yeah. I mean, I get why you would have this argument because, like you said, it's the only two. You could have like where it comes close, but the idea that people think Spider-Man's villains are better than Batman's villains is absurd.
No.
Mainly, if I only have one argument against it, it's like, other than Green Goblin, all of Spider-Man's villains are animals.
Yeah.
It's just like, Batman's villains are just like, yeah, there's the Penguin and Catwoman. Sure, there's Man-Bat. There are animal creatures, but like, it's a whole spectrum of people. Like,
some of his Killer Croc?
Killer Croc, yeah. Some of his best villains are just dudes without powers.
Yeah.
And who just like mess with your mind. And they're just like way more interesting and just, I don't know, the idea that people like Spider-Man's villains, you could argue, are more fun for a teenager to fight, but they're all just like silly wrestler characters who you could, if you took away their superpowers, you could throw them in a ring and be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Batman's villains are all like psycho, interesting.
And I think that's because of who the hero is. With Batman, there is a lot more you could fuck with psychologically. In Spider-Man, it's more of a strength thing.
Yeah.
You can throw lightning bolts at him and get punched through a bunch of walls. Batman needs that sort of street level. He needs, you would think the Penguin's no match for Batman, but he is on different levels, whereas a lot of Spider-Man guys are, I'm going to just punch you real good.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, you take the Sinister Six and put them up against the devilish Danger Gang or whatever, the Arkham Crazies or whatever. Like, they're probably going to get the floor wiped with them, depending on who you choose for those six. I mean, if you get
Spider-Man
can
take out anybody on Batman's side.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Batman, the villains, just the villains against each other.
Oh, villains versus villains.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I thought you said like swapping their.
No. I'm sure Spider-Man's villains could probably take them out, but I mean, unless you do like Killer Croc, Clayface,
Clayface and Mr. Freeze are the ones that would be hardest, and probably Bane.
Bane, sure.
But I think you put Bane versus Rhino. I think they're probably equal in strength. Sandman and Clayface, get them all mixed up together, and then they try to separate them. Like, oh, guys, you don't bring the Play-Doh on the carpet.
Does this count as sex?
But yeah, all the Spider-Man villains would mop the floor with Batman's villains.
Anyway, moving on.
All right. Let's get to our main topic. Lord of the Rings, War for the Rohirrim. Steve, you're the Lord of the Rings guy, so you're just going to take the lead on this one.
Sure. For those who don't know...
what's a Lord of the Rings? I've never heard of this before. I don't think we mentioned it on this podcast.
Never, no. I'm new to it. I'm looking forward to seeing... I'm going to watch one movie.
I started with the anime.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim is a story set like 200 years before the events...
186 or something.
Before the events of the Hobbit. And it tells a story of Hera, thank you.
They need to start creating some more fantasy women's names. It's like Hela, Hera, and Circe.
Yeah, like the first 10 minutes of this movie, we're just jumping ahead. The first 10 minutes of this movie, they introduce like 4 or 5 characters, and like I think 3 or 4 of them have H names. It's like, all right, we got to split this up a little bit here. Anyway. Is a story of Hera. She is a princess of the kingdom of Rohan. Rohan is this kingdom in Middle Earth. They're kind of horse enthusiasts.
Bunch of horse girls.
To say the least. And she is a rival... kingdom comes in and is just like, hey, I want my son to marry your daughter. We'll unite our houses and Rohan will be all the stronger for it. And her dad was like, no way, Jose. And then punches that guy once, instantly kills him.
Yeah.
And then
what's his name?
The guy who got punched?
No, the puncher.
Oh, Helm Hammerhand.
There's a reason. Yeah. He's a one-punch man.
Played by Brian Cox, is the king of Rohan.
The only person you'll know in this movie.
Punches the guy. He dies. His son vows vengeance. And
dude, you were on my property.
Many years later,
Get the fuck
a war of the Rohirrim breaks out. And this is that story. Ben, what did you think about this movie?
It's fine.
Yeah.
I give it a C.
All right, that's our show, folks.
No, it's like, to start off, like, it's There's nothing too offensive about it. Like, the animation's good, not great.
Mm-hmm.
Story's fine, not that interesting. They don't do anything that they couldn't do in the Rings of Power. This felt more like this is what Eowyn would have told Aragorn, like when she's feeding him that soup that he doesn't like. Here's who I look up to, who's in my family, my great great aunt blow and blow.
Yeah,
and
this is Joffrey showing around
Sansa.
Marjorie showing around, and it's like, oh, down there is the bones of Rhaenyra and her dragon, and the dragon burned her alive or whatever, yada yada yada. So it's like that one little story. Then it's like, now we're just expanding that.
This is 45 seconds of dialogue from one character to another to just kind of explain a little bit about their family, the history of the land, and who she is as a person. Expanded into a 2.5 hour movie.
That's like 212, right? I don't think it's 2.5.
Oh, isn't it like 224?
Whatever.
It's over 2.
It's over 2, yeah. For
Kraven was over 2 as well. That's
bummer.
Crazy. So all in all, is it a story that needed to be told? Nah, you don't need to. You could just tell me how Helm's Deep gets its name.
Mm-hmm.
Does it do anything different that I haven't seen before? No. But is it bad? Not really. But in a year of animation, this is pretty low on the list.
Yeah, when you're going up against the wild robot, Well, I like this movie a little bit more than you did, but I do have issues with it. I think there's times this movie, I think, looks great. And then other times I'm like, why does this look weird?
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest problem with this movie is just like, it's like you're kind of taking these beautiful pieces of like art, like that have been painted, and then you're just like, you cut out an anime character from online and just kind of taped it on there.
Yeah, it's still, that intro with the flying bird and the landscapes.
It still fits and like looks like it looks like it's supposed to be there, but at the same time, it just seems out of place.
Yep.
It's almost like, Roger Rabbit walking around. It's like,
sure,
it doesn't necessarily look bad, but I know it's not right.
Yep. And if they did it more throughout, where a lot of the nature was real photography, and they were blending these things, if it was kind of its style throughout, I'd be okay with that. But it kind of just do a little bit of it in the beginning and then never again.
Yeah.
I mean, a few times, but nothing as striking as that bird flying over real fucking mountains. It's bizarre looking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's an interesting choice, and to a certain degree it makes sense why the landscapes and everything look like that, because from the get-go I think it looks like Middle Earth. I'm never like confused as to it's coming in from an anime perspective, they could have changed how things look, but it very much stuck to a lot of the visuals that the Lord of the Rings films did, to not confuse the audience. Like, you knew Edoras the second you saw it. You knew Helm's Deep as soon as you saw it. But anyway, from a character design point, they look like anime people, but they weren't, egregiously crazy looking. I think some of the outfits, like the more regal outfits, I know it's like 200 years beforehand, but like when they're wearing like all white, like these white robes, it didn't really feel Rohan to me.
Every time she was wearing white, it looked like Black Widow in the Black Widow movie. Her red hair and then a white and black outfit. And it was just like, it kept popping me out because everybody else looked okay, but she just seemed like she was in a different movie. And we know she's our protagonist because she's the one with colored hair. Everybody else is like blonde or black hair. She's the one with bright red hair. Typical anime.
Yeah. But what I appreciate about this movie is that, when you think anime, you're thinking, I'm charging up, I'm throwing energy beams, I'm doing these crazy punch combos and all that stuff.
Streaks of light as you're moving fast.
Doing the whole like, yeah, there's none of that.
Yeah, no internal dialogue in your head.
It plays it very straight. There's only a few parts that are like kind of silly, but I would say like no more silly than, skateboarding Legolas downstairs, or like
the barrel,
or the barrels, or the like running up the falling rocks and the Hobbit stuff. Like, is no more silly than that.
No.
So
way less silly. I'd say it's the most serious out of all of them.
The only one that's like the only part that's kind of silly is like helm stuff, like in the back half, which we'll get to. But character-wise, I think Brian Cox is good as Helm Hammerhand. Sure. I apologize, whatever actress was
something wise
Hera. I think she did a good job. But what I think is kind of like, not that I necessarily wanted this movie to be longer, but you introduce these like side characters who like I was kind of really interested in, and they never really got moments to shine.
Like her cousin or her brothers?
Well, yeah, like you had her brothers who I more or less liked right away, because it would have been easy for them to go like, you're a woman, shut up, we're gonna go fight. But it all seemed like they pretty much all got along and supported her. And, they were good sons who defended the kingdom. They weren't like pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And so when they died, you're like, oh man, that like kind of sucks. But I wish I had a little bit more to care about from when they died.
Sucks being a son of the king in Rohan. They're gonna die.
Can't win. Yeah. And then you had her like little scribe dude who was just like, oh, mistress or whatever, who was just kind of there. Yeah. And it seemed like he's the character who you of course don't want to die because he's always saying something cute.
But he
or like
when
she's feeling down, he's the one to sort of like pick her up. Yep. But he doesn't really get anything to do other than just like kind of like bring her soup or whatever.
Yeah. Like he would read a scroll of, trying to calm people down, and it would have a little line from something in history, and someone would go, oh my God, you're a genius, and then go run off because they had an epiphany of something.
I mean, I guess his best moment is near the end where he's like, have you guys heard the story of the Shield Maidens or whatever? It's like to sort of like bring everyone's spirits up when that's like that story's being overlaid in the final moments. But my favorite character in the whole movie is actually her assistant.
Yeah.
Alwyn was fucking badass in this movie. I loved her. I wish the movie was about her. I thought she was a lot of fun. I wanted more time with her. I wanted her to have like, she should have gotten like the big anime moment of a thing where she comes out and it's just like, you see like moments of her fighting, but I wanted her to just like cut down like 15 dudes. Yeah. I was waiting for her to be the shit in this movie. So I was a little disappointed when she didn't get her big action moment, but I loved her. Let's see. Anyway, okay, so Wolf. Wolf is the main villain of this movie. And
boring.
He's Jon Snow, but if Jon Snow was evil.
Yeah.
Looks the same, sounds the same. Just a little bit slightly darker skin with a scar on his face. Well, no, Jon Snow had a scar on his face. Yeah. So he's Jon Snow, actually. Yep.
But he's such a like, I wish we had more time with him and her as kids, because like, oh, we were so close. We had one flashback together where I put a scar on you, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, they needed to have truly grown up together and like loved each other, had a little romance when they were 10, and they're each other's first kiss, but because of their fathers had to take them apart. And then when they're forced to get married, she sees, oh, he's changed. He's a different person. Like, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest disservice this movie has, I think it does everything right except for like character bonding. Because I don't dislike any of the characters per se. It's just I'm not with them enough, and there is enough character motivation for me to like care about them.
Their personalities are so it's so regal and pompous, and just feels like a lot of old fantasy movies of the past where there's no fun. You know, you watch Lord of the Rings, and it doesn't matter if it's like dour or silly, like you're having a good time, you're hanging out with your family, the fellowship, they're your boys, you like everybody for lots of different reasons, and even when like, you know, the fellowship breaks at the end, it's like, so how, like the movie works because they're all together, but then you have these three separate storylines, but like Merry and Pippin, they're the comedy, they're always fun to be with. You have Sam always lifting up Frodo even though that they're constantly in danger, and then you add Smeagol to it, he's a fun element, and then you have
Legolas
and Gimli
and Aragorn together.
But there's still comedy with.
But there's still comedy with them.
Yeah.
This is like, so even though like they all broke up, you're having a good time with all three groups.
Yes, and you're not having any fun with anybody here. No one's a good time. I just and it happens in movies all the time where the bad guy is so serious and he's just the most evil person. I just wish every once in a while you'd come into a scene, the camera's panning over, the bad guy's with his goons, and you're hearing the end of a joke. You know how they always do that, and it's a ridiculous line, and you don't know what that joke would be. The punchline is always just like, and then he said, "Spaghetti in my apartment." It's like one of those things.
That's pretty good.
And so, like, I wish there was more of that, of just like the bad guy laughing with his goons or telling a joke, so you can tell that they are people and not just, I am here to do the plot. And I wish we had that with every character, of just normalcy between them.
Yeah.
But everything is like a stage play, and everything is just perfect, and it's
because I feel like everyone knows villain writing 101 is like, to have a good villain is to have a good reason why they're justified in their actions. Mm-hmm. And also to like just give them a little bit of personality. I understand like the idea of, I united these tribes because I am scary and dangerous and I rule with an iron fist. I get that. But like, if you're just constantly just, then as an audience, I'm not captivated by you as a villain, because it's like, you're not interesting to watch because you're just angry the whole time.
Like every villain that like, oh, sorry, boss, I fucked up. And then they shoot him. I'm like, knock it off. You're shooting your own guys. It doesn't make you seem even cooler. It makes you seem wasteful, really.
Yeah. I mean, I am by no means an expert on drug dealers, but I imagine, let's say there are some real bad dudes who have killed people, whatever. They're still cracking jokes with their friends.
Yeah.
They might be terrible human beings who like beat their girlfriends or whatever. But I bet they're still cracking jokes from time to time.
Yep. There's still a human being somewhere in there. Yeah. Just when you see characters just going like, hey, did you catch the latest episode of, and it's always some ridiculous Love Island or, some show that you wouldn't think a drug dealer would be watching. Just little humanity stuff. That's all I want.
But then I think that's where the missed opportunity with his Wolf's second in command. He seemed like a character who, like, they could have done something with, because they were giving him lines. He seemed like a decent human being, just like forced to, like, I'm just following my lord's line of lineage, and this guy's not listening to anything I say. And then he gets, like, I should have cared about that guy making it out. So when he dies at the end, I would have been like, oh man, that sucks. But it was just kind of like, hey, sir, can you like not do that? And he's like, well, I'm going to do it. I'm like, all right. And then like that was his whole shtick, the whole movie. I think, or maybe that guy should have fought Alwyn. So like when Wolf and her are fighting, Alwyn comes out and fights him. I think that would have been a fun fight. The two sidekicks fight. Because neither one of them, like, they could both be like, we're older. We're both just doing our duty as like protecting these two young people. And I think
there's no history between you and me.
There's no, or like, even if there is, it's just like, I respect you because you're a shield maiden, and you might respect me because I'm the general of this army or whatever the fuck. That could have been a nice moment. Once again, we're expanding a movie that's already like kind of long, but there is moments that I think they could have cut. You did not need the Oliphant scene. The zombified elephant.
Oh, that was like probably my favorite scene.
It was kind of fun, but I just didn't see like why it was necessary. Because I thought like, oh, this
is setting up the monster to use later.
Well, it has some connection to the thing, which they kind of just waved a hand at, going like, oh yeah, the Haradrim are in the east. We should worry about them. Here's evidence because we have this elephant or whatever. But like that never played out. It was just like, oh, we need an action scene here. Let's throw an elephant because they're a cool creature we can throw in. And then you have one of the Watchers in the Water, which looks cool and was super fucking gross that it ate an elephant whole.
Yeah.
But
really does.
It did that thing that I hate in movies where it's like, there's this giant creature and it somehow like sneaks up onto you into the woods. Like, you would have heard it coming.
Yeah, I mean, that shot of just its eyes.
Super scary.
Very creepy and very much anime, but it made me chuckle a little.
Yeah. So I just think you could have cut that. The siege of Helm's Deep took forever.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't come prepared with a tower. They had to build their own.
Sure.
And you see how big the plain is around Helm's Deep. They had to travel far to get these woods.
Yeah. The Helm Hammerhand, like, ghost plot cut it.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't need that. I think it's a fun idea, but that like some of this stuff is just like this works as like a 8-episode series or something versus a.
We say that so much.
Yeah, it's just like, but it's like it's only because you have ideas here that could work, but only for an episode. Not they don't work in the movie. Either expand it or cut it. But anyway, so yeah, Wolf leads this army. They attack Edoras. Edoras gets burned to the ground. Both of her brothers die. Her dad, Helm Hammerhand, who is also another character, my least favorite. Like, I think one of the better performances in the movie, but one of my least favorite characters. Only because I don't think he was a good king.
Yeah.
Even though it like made it seem like, oh well, of course this guy is the guy. He's so like strong and big and like regal looking, very Thor looking. But it just never. Everyone like kept saying like this is a dumb idea, and he's just like no. And I know that's like what kings do.
Yeah.
But it's like okay, so why should I care about anything this king does if he's constantly just like fucking up without any real justification? Like if he chooses these poor decisions, I would like to know what is his logic behind that, other than like it'll make us look weak or whatever. Which I don't even think they did that.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like I will not be I will not hear this from you because you almost got my daughter killed when she ran off and did her own thing. It's like I can't stop her from riding a horse when the movie multiple times says I'm your fastest rider. She's gonna go do whatever she wants.
There's a reason she got to be your fastest rider because she went and rode her horse.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, brothers die. The king is beset by grief, and so he spends his nights sneaking out through a secret passageway to beat up dudes in the snow. But also there's a plot where they think Helm Hammerhand is eating people, but really it's just orcs and a troll who after he kills he'll like leave the bodies there and they'll eat them later.
Yeah,
which I think is a fun idea, but ultimately it was only just a way to like get 2 orcs and a troll in there for him to fight.
Yeah.
Which is one of the like I think one of the more fun action sequences, but also kind of like, all right, here's this human like going hand to hand with a big ass troll looking thing. Little silly. But a fun scene, whatever. But then it leads to my least I don't know if it's my least favorite, but a moment I don't love, because it is also a little silly, is Helm Hammerhand sacrifices himself, closed the door to save his daughter, and then he's just like punching dudes who are like running up this long pathway, and the snow is so thick you like it fades and you don't see what happens, and then it cuts to the next morning, and he is standing like a statue, like All Might and My Hero. I know you don't get that reference, but maybe some of the listeners do. He's just like frozen, standing up with his fist in the air, like you never brought me down, and it's just like. So he would have fought these guys, got tired, and went, I'm going to stand here like this until
I freeze.
Until I freeze to death.
Yeah.
To make a point. Instead of just like going, hey, they're all dead. Can you let me in?
Yeah.
Absolutely absurd.
Yeah. I did like that fight, though.
Yeah, I did too. So anyway, the Rohan is now without a king and its 2 heirs. All that's left is
some chick,
some girl, and it doesn't seem like there's many people to defend Helm's Deep or whatever, the Hornburg as it was called at that time. Meanwhile, they're building. I saw with Nick. I turned to him at one point when I was like, "Where were you when they built that ladder?" Because they made this siege tower massive. I didn't quite understand the logic behind it until when it was actually in use. I was like, "Okay, I see why they did this now."
You could get a lot more guys across at one time.
Yeah, I think it would have saved you guys months if you just kind of did what the orcs did and just built a bunch of ladders.
Sure. But they were right out of like arrow range.
Yeah.
So
I did like that.
time.
Yeah, I did like that scene where you see a guy shoot, it just doesn't, it like misses by like 10 feet and they're like, okay, now we're going to build this massive thing.
And now this is where we have to push it over from. So you have to go extra tall to reach, So it all makes sense.
Yeah. It worked out in the end, but the whole time I'm watching this thing, I'm like, they're building a skyscraper. Yeah. Like, how?
And it's taking like this all easier? Winter long, too.
Yeah.
This isn't like a 2-day thing. It's taking
like,
forever.
You guys could have built a trebuchet or something, or catapults, and just launched rocks at the front door until, like, oh, there's no door here anymore. We can just run in. whatever. I'm not a siege tactician. I'm sure there's guys. There's going to be a Wired video of some like medieval professional who's just like, it's actually pretty accurate. Anyway, so we get to the final battle, which, you know, every major Hollywood movie is just like, when they talk about, in this movie with swords, they always compare it to the Battle of Helm's Deep, because the Helm's Deep battle is arguably the greatest, you know, battle sequence put on screen. And so here we are here again. So it's a very big thing to live up to. And this battle is pretty lame.
Yep.
The siege tower comes down, and so you're going to think, oh, the Rohirrim are going to muster. I thought what was going to happen is you're going to have the kid character to like, let me tell you, the shield maidens will save us. And then all the women who are like, here, you know, a bunch of the men went out to fight and died, Wolf's army or whatever. Oh, the women, even though they're not trained, they will rise up and be the new shield maidens, because they even say like, well, they say the shield maidens don't exist anymore. Well, some still exist, because her assistant, whatever, she was a shield maiden.
Yeah.
It's like,
I
okay,
think there could have been a lot of mothers that were at one time. They had kids and they'd given that up, but now they're...
And this is when you like cut to, what you haven't been seeing for the past 2 months as they've been building this siege tower. We've been training the women here to fight, so now we have shield maidens again. Mm-hmm. And I thought that'd be a really cool moment, because, you know, there's early in the movie, they're like, well, we've been thinking about taking that shield maiden banner down, because, you know, that doesn't really apply anymore. It was a relic from a time gone by. It was like, okay, this is where you bring the shield maidens back.
A relic from a time gone by, but there's still a living one who's assisting, like, your daughter. How? I mean, I guess if you're...
I mean, I just made up that line.
Oh, okay. But, like, they talk about it as if it is ancient history, but there's a living one right there.
There's one right there. I mean, none of these men might have seen her fight. You know, she does have gray hair.
Sure.
She's like 45.
Yeah, exactly. In that time?
She might as well be 90.
Elderly, yes.
Yeah. But anyway... but it's just Alwyn and Hera. Hera. It's just these two, and they're going to take on the entire army, which in one sense is kind of cool.
Sure.
But once again, it is a little silly. But, you know, she basically goes like, let's one-on-one combat, and if I defeat you, your army goes home, and, you know, let my people live.
And he's a rat bastard.
And he's a rat bastard. He loses, and she kills him. And then they're all like, huzzah! And then, the eagles.
Oh, yeah.
She climbs a mountain. She talks to an eagle. And it's just like, hey, can you do me a favor? Because I gave you
some meat that one time.
Some meat a couple times. And the eagles deliver a message. And then the backup comes. And just like in the Two Towers, the army of horse guys come down that hill and save the day. And, you know, we all knew it was going to happen. All that said, is it a little long? Yeah. Is it the animation style I would have chosen? No. But I do feel like even though it is, you know, a style we haven't seen before, I do feel it kind of did look like the older movies. Like, you could have seen this movie come out in the 90s or something like that. Sure. Like, this could have existed in that time frame. And altogether, I think I'm going to give this movie a B-. Because I did like it. I don't think it, you know, people talk about The Hobbit. They can go, those movies suck. It ruins the Lord of the Rings.
But at least there's joy in it.
Yeah, no.
You know?
But, I mean, I like The Hobbit
movies. You like The Hobbit movies? I don't like The Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
But I'd rather watch The Hobbit again over this.
Sure.
Just because there's joy.
But my point is that I think there are plenty of people who look at The Hobbit and go like, it's bad, or Rings of Power, that sucks. It's not Tolkien. They would rather these just don't exist, and then just have the Lord of the Rings films be it. But my thing with this movie, I think it doesn't take away from the franchise in any way, because I think you and I have talked about, like, if you're gonna do something like you have Lord of the Rings, how do you top it? You can't. But what you can do is, like, you can do fun new things. You don't try and do another live action thing, because probably everyone's going to compare it to that. But animation is a well of things you can, like, keep going with. And I think this movie does a good job. It is a perfectly fine movie that tried something new And even if it didn't like hit the high we were hoping for, it works.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look bad. And I don't think it taints the Lord of the Rings franchise. And if they did more in this style or did more animated films, I'd be all for it. I think in the grand scheme of things, I think this movie does a better job of like getting that sort of scratching that Lord of the Rings itch without it going like, hey, remember all this stuff from this stuff, or
there's enough of it.
There's yeah,
but it's impossible to not have some of it.
Yeah,
I think Saruman was fine. I think I'm off to go see a wizard. He goes by many names. Like I don't think we needed that.
Yeah, so I agree. When I saw Saruman, I was like, okay, I'll let that slide. And then when they go like, we're gonna go see Gandalf, I rolled my eyes. I was like, Jesus Christ, you guys had it.
Have to.
You had it. You just give us Saruman. Even though it was like kind of jarring to hear Christopher Lee's voice again, I was like, oh wow, AI is crazy. But yeah, I think the movie works more than it doesn't. And if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, I think you probably will enjoy this, especially if you hate Rings of Power and The Hobbit.
I think with the new the Hunt for Gollum movie that I guess they want to turn into 2 movies, and that is the perfect candidate to be animated. Viggo Mortensen is too old to be playing Aragorn anymore. Turn it into an animated thing. And I think we should not do anime. Not because I think the anime is bad, but not every spinoff needs to be exactly the same.
No, I agree.
So if we get 3 more movies in the animated Lord of the Rings world, let's have each one be different animation houses, different styles, just to have some variety.
Yeah.
Because if the next thing is also just anime, I don't know if I care.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be okay. Now, I don't want to see like a remake of Lord of the Rings, but you take that style from the 80s of those old, I forget the guy's name, but I wouldn't mind seeing that style come back as kind of like a fun, like, oh, remember these movies? Well, here's kind of like a more cleaner version, but it looks like that, and it's just a new story in the Lord of the Rings world, just as like a fun callback thing. I mean, probably more like a direct
like the Rankin Bass ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the name.
I thought you were trying to say like old anime style.
No.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Okay.
The ones where like the orcs were like blue people and the elves were scary look. Or no, the elves were blue people.
I don't know. I haven't seen them.
Okay, well, neither have I all the way through, but I've seen clips, and the hobbits are all like little ugly troll people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind.
That'd be fine.
It'd be fun to see that kind of idea come back, but just with a new story.
And you can do one that this is the CG one. This is the one that's either more Pixar-like or more hyper-realistic. There's tons of animation styles out there. I just don't want to see anime again, unless it's a very different looking anime.
Yeah, give Aragorn a laser sword.
Not even saying that.
I know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I want all these to exist. I'm just saying I'm open to the idea so long as they maintain what makes, Tolkien and Lord of the Rings work, and just like not only being these, epic, awesome, action franchises, but also like about like love and hope and joy, even in all these dark times, and have them be fun, but also just dark and scary, but also just a good time all the way through. Yeah. And I know that's a tall order, and maybe all of them don't have to hit those marks, but they've got to have some interconnecting essence of what makes this franchise work, as opposed to just like, well, we're just going to throw a bunch of money at it and make it look cool, and who cares about story and character?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get more of this stuff just so they can make sure they retain those rights. Lord of the Rings they want it to be Star Wars. They really want a bigger universe, and you could just keep telling stories in this world. And hey, with that source material, there's a lot of stories to tell.
Sure, so they took one page and made a 2-hour plus long anime movie.
That's crazy.
That's all you need, is you just need the idea. It's like, all right, let's tell this story. Mm-hmm. We get to make up whatever fuck we want.
As long as it doesn't cancel out any other information, then we're good.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Next week, it's Lion King Mufasa and Sonic 3.
I'm not
No.
seeing either of them.
No.
Might be a This Meets That. Maybe
I think it should be a This Meets That, so we could have at least one more before the end of the year, and then we come back the next week and we do our year-end wrap-up.
Or Nosferatu, and then we can.
It just depends on your schedule. You know what my schedule
We'll
is.
see.
So, but if we can record 2 episodes back to back, I'm cool with that as well.
I'm just glad, I'm keeping my expectations low for Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that more than likely we're ending the year on a good film, and it's also a horror film as our Christmas movie. That's something I'm sure you've been waiting to do forever.
Yeah, I don't know the last Christmas horror movie that was like out on Christmas. It makes sense because people are in theaters. Even older people go, "Oh, Nosferatu! I remember that as a kid. Let's see that new version." But it's just such a like that and like Bob Dylan movie makes sense. You put a biopic during the holidays. People love that schlop. But yeah, we'll record whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all on you. All right. Well, next week, This Meets That, probably. If you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL Podcast at gmail.com. We're on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. But TikTok's going away in the new year. So, I don't know, maybe Lemon 8. I think that's the spinoff people are jumping on. We'll just be like everybody else, enjoying whatever social media you throw at us. But as always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And keep consuming.